This is the best moment to become an expert in sealed Secrets of Strixhaven, because this weekend we have no fewer than 2 competitive events in that format. In the qualifier play-in, you could take your first step on the way to the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. And in the arenadirect, you can win play booster boxes of Strixhaven packs. I have won booster boxes in these events in Dragonstorm Tarkir, MTG Foundations, that's Avatar, that's Lorwyn, some Ninja Turtles, 2 Bloomburrow, I have another Bloomburrow over there. There's some random booster packs. And in this video, I am going to show you the data points that I look at every single time before I ever press that buy-in button and drop my hard-earned gems on an event like this, to set myself up to have the best chance possible of winning a box. I dig through the data and I focus on 4 crucial pieces of information. Number 1, what colors do you most want to play and what colors would you rather avoid? One step deeper, which commons and uncommons should you be most inclined to play in your deck? And which ones should you try to avoid putting in your deck? And crucially, for those of us who love to draft, I pay special attention to the ways in which sealed is different from draft. It's a different format. And if you just walk into the weekend's arenadirect with the same exact card and color pair evaluations that you have in draft, you are going to make systematic mistakes by including cards in your sealed deck that are good in draft, but not so good in sealed, and leaving on the sideboard cards that you're used to being pretty bad in draft, but are actually really good in sealed. I'm also going to do a new segment for the first time, something that I'm calling Hidden Gems. I dug into the rate at which people include specific cards in their deck, given that they opened it in their pool. Way down that list are cards that people are leaving in their sideboard most of the time. And yet some of those cards actually have great win statistics when they are played. These are the hidden gems that you're probably overlooking in your pool that you definitely want to play in your deck more often. After that, I'll show you and break down the deck list that I used to win a collector booster box of Secrets of Strixhaven 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, I forgot that one. I also won a booster box in Secrets of Strixhaven. I went one and done in that event with a really weird deck that took me a long time to figure out how to build, so I'll shortcut that work for you and just show you what worked. And then finally, I'll close with some general advice that I have from doing a lot of these events. Throughout this video, I'm going to be using public data from 17lands.com. This is a free client that people can download. It tracks your drafts and your sealed events, and they provide public data on how different cards and different colors performed across all of the events that were tracked. I'm not affiliated with them, so I just want to say a huge thank you to 17lands.com for collecting these data and making them available. Hugely appreciate that. And for any more information, please just go to 17lands.com and dig in for yourself. Okay, now for the good stuff. How are the color pairs performing? And by the way, if you're audio only, don't worry, it might be a little harder to follow, but I'm gonna make sure to talk through everything. None of the images will be essential in this video. Number 1, top performing color pair in the format, Silverquill Orzhov white-black with a 58% win rate, basically matching its win rate in draft. Number 2, Lorehold Boros red-white. This has a 57% win rate, a shade worse, 1 percentage point worse than in draft. That's actually enough to flip the order. In draft, Lorehold is a little bit better than Silverquill. In arenadirect sealed, you'd actually slightly rather be Silverquill than Lorehold. Number 3, Prismari Izzet red-blue 56%. It's actually 2 percentage points better in arenadirect sealed than it is in draft. If you saw the video that I put out before the last arenadirect, this is actually a bit of an upset. It's a switcheroo, something that we learned from the arenadirect. In that video, I based my analysis on seeded pack sealed, where Wizards actually gives you some packs that systematically or only include cards of a certain college. It turned out Prismari is a lot worse in seeded pack sealed than it actually just is in normal sealed. So that's one difference from the last time I did an analysis like this. In the actual arenadirect, Prismari was better than it was in seeded pack sealed. Still not the best college. It's around the middle of the pack, but it's not an outlier in having a low win rate like it was in seeded pack. So Prismari, right in the middle, 56% win rate. 2 percentage points better than it is in draft. Number 4, Quandrix Simic green-blue 55% win rate, about the same as it is in draft. This is also including green-blue with a little splash, but not full-on 3 colors, more on that later, but most people who are playing Quandrix are splashing. And number 5, this turns out to be the big mover down, the college that you most do not want to be in, Witherbloom, Golgari, green, black, 53% win rate, 2 percentage points worse than it is in draft. If you're wondering why all these win rates are above 50%, it's because these data are from people who downloaded the 17lanes.com client. These players are better than the average arena player. Probably if you're downloading a client to track your data, you're probably more invested in draft and therefore you get better. So their average win rate in this event type seems to be about 56%. So if you're above 56%, it's a good thing compared to the average 17 lanes user. Anything that's below 56% is a bad thing compared to the average 17 lanes win rate. Okay, so what's our big insight, big simplification? I think it's very simple. White-based decks are in the upper half of decks performing better than average, Lorehold and Silverquill. Green-based decks, Quandrix and especially Witherbloom, are in the lower half and performing worse. So big simplification, you would rather be white, you would rather not be green. But this is a format where people broadly have stylized it as being white-based, more aggressive, or Mardu, more aggressive style decks versus green-based, soupier style decks. So it's worth looking into the 3 color win rates. I will say I only shared the win rates for the colleges, not for all 2 color pairs. That's because very few people are playing the unsupported color pairs. Like the number of Azorius blue-white decks is vanishingly small from the last arenadirect. The win rates are not devastatingly bad when people do go in that direction, but they're going in that direction so rarely that we can't really say much confidently about it. Okay, so let's dig into the 3 color pair win rates. These are the 3 colors that have the most games played. They actually have thousands of games played in the arenadirect 2 weekends ago, so we can say something confident about them. The number 1, the 3 color pair that you most want to be in, if you can only be in one, is actually not even a green-based soupy 3 color pair. I'm going to say shard instead of 3 color pair from now on. Should have been doing that all along. The best shard is Jeskai, white, blue, red. Or you could think of it as probably Prismari with a splash into white or Lorehold with a splash into blue. It actually has a 56% win rate, which is really interesting because that was the middle of the pack win rate that Prismari, blue-red, had in the 2 color pair data. So the best 3 color pair has the same win rate as the middling, most mediocre 2 color pair. So right away, if you're in 3 colors, something has gone wrong. Maybe it's because you didn't open an obvious awesome college and you have to splash, and so you're already in a worse position. But when you have the autonomy to decide, do I want to go 2 colors or do I want to play 3 colors? You probably just want to go 2 colors. This pains me to say as a YouTuber named Unlimited Splash, but splashing here probably should be a last resort or a second resort. Number 2 is Teamer. Probably this is Quandrix with a splash into red. Could also be Prismari with a splash into green. And these, by the way, are more than just like 1 pip. So not just a small splash. This would be a big splash. 55% win rate for Teamer. Number 3, Mardu, white, black, red. This has a 54% win rate. This is just mushing together your Silverquill and your Lorehold deck. And it's much worse than either just playing Silverquill or just playing Lorehold. Number 4, Sultai, blue, black, green with a 52% win rate. This is now worse than any one of the 2 color pairs. The worst one of those was Witherbloom, green, black with a 53% win rate. If you take your Witherbloom deck and you add in blue, your win rate goes down by 1%. We don't know that that's true for any given Witherbloom deck, but broadly, that shard of Witherbloom plus blue has a 1 percentage point lower win rate than just Witherbloom. And finally, the worst shard that people are actually playing is Abzan. White, black, green, 51% win rate. I had to scratch my head for a moment to figure out why these are the most played 5 shards. So I think it's actually really deep, and I want to share that too. These are the shards where you always have 2 pairs that are supported in the format. So Jeskai is Prismari plus Lorehold, right? So there are 2 colleges, you mush them together and you make Jeskai, right? Teamer is Prismari plus Quandrix. And we can go through. we can identify Mardu is Silverquill plus Lorehold, etc. The ones that no one is playing, those are the ones where there's only one supported college in there. So for example, a few hundred people played Grixis, blue, black, red. Blue-red is Prismari, but blue and black is not a college, and red and black is not a college. So if you're one of those few hundred people who is trying to make a shard work that only has one supported pair in it, you should probably just stick to the shards that have two supported pairs. But also, very importantly, anytime you're taking Witherbloom and you're adding in a color, you just do worse. Basically, every time you play 3 colors, you do worse than just playing either one of those colleges. But you especially want to not be 3 colors with Witherbloom. It's kind of disastrous. You're taking like a 4 percentage point hit to your chances of winning before you even launch a game. Okay, so that tells us broadly what's going on in the format. But where I actually get the most value is in seeing a lot of specific examples of what commons that you're likely to see in your pool this weekend you actually want to be playing, and how different commons and uncommons should be evaluated differently in sealed than you're used to in draft. As we get into that, let me say, if you like this kind of effortful data deep dive video, meticulously fact-checked, where I comb through data sets and give you the information that you need to succeed in limited, do make sure that you are subscribed to my channel on YouTube. I post these kinds of data videos all the time, at least once a week. The name of the game is I want to get better at limited, and I want you to get better at limited right along with me. I'm not just winning boxes for the sake of winning boxes. I want to help you do the same. I've said this before, but my big goal in limited is to qualify for the limited championships. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I'm going to try. But I know I'm on a long improvement journey to get there. And I started this channel with the idea that I want to improve in public in order to provide a public good, a service to help other people improve using the exact same tools and techniques that I developed to reach my limited magic goal. As part of that, I also post a lot of gameplay videos. I do every single weekday, either a data video or mostly a gameplay video. And then when there are special events like there is this weekend, I post as many of them as I possibly can fit in. I was just about to say that I'm sitting at 1,799 subscribers and you could be the 1800th, but as I was pulling up the window to say that, someone beat you to that and pushed me over to 1800, so you could be the 1,801st subscriber. So I hope you'll join and get better at limited right along with me every weekday. All right, so here are the 5 best commons in the format. Numbers 1, 2, and honestly 4 are not going to surprise anybody. Number 1 is Pursue the Past, the intensely synergistic Lorehold card advantage card. Number 2, Elite Interceptor, the best 1-drop in the format. And number 4, Rubble Rouser, the mana dork that pulls things out of your graveyard. These 3 are probably the top 3 commons in Premier Draft as well. It's the other 2 that are so interesting. So number 3 best common in sealed is Quick Study, 2 and a blue for an instant, draw 2 cards. First of all, I just love to see that as a longtime divination fan. But also this is very important news because it's different from what we saw when we were looking at seeded pack sealed data. It turns out that in the actual arenadirect, drawing 2 cards for 3 mana was just a great deal. And then number 5 is another Prismari card, probably Chase Inspiration, 1 blue for an instant. Target creature you control gets +0/+3 and gains hexproof until end of turn. We saw this also as a massive overperformer in the seeded pack data. I think Chase Inspiration performs so well in sealed because when people are playing it and casting it, they have a bomb that they're trying to protect. This helps that bomb survive and the bomb goes on to win the game. It's not like Chase Inspiration is a game-winning card on its own. Just signals that you have something to protect if you're holding on to a Chase Inspiration. So I've put up the win rates here. The way to interpret this percentage is that when you draw this card in your hand, you go on to win the game this percent of the time. Pursue the Past and Elite Interceptor, once you draw them, you have a 60% chance of winning if we know absolutely nothing else about the game that you're in. This is compared to a baseline win percentage of about maybe 56% for 17 lanes users in this event type. So Elite Interceptor is correlated with about a 3 to 4 percentage point improvement in how likely the user is to go on to win. And then the other 3, Quick Study, Rubble Rouser, and Chase Inspiration, all sit at 59%. To put this in perspective, Quick Study has a win rate of 59.2% in Arena Directs. That puts it just behind Emeritus of Woe, the 4 mana 5/4 that makes you a demonic tutor. Similar level to Burst Lightning, Slumbering Trudge, Emeritus of Abundance, the mythic that gives you a regrowth. It's actually ahead of some of the mythic dragons, similar to Lorehold the Historian, ahead of Prismari the Inspiration, ahead of Resonating Loot. So if you don't open any good rares or mythics, check your pool, see how many elite interceptors and quick studies you got, and they might make up for not having any good rares or mythics right there. All right, now, so that was what was best in sealed. Now let's talk about which commons and uncommons are better or worse in sealed than you're used to from Premier Draft. The reason that this section is important is if you're someone like me who does a lot of drafting, you have pretty baked in card evaluations at this point. I look at a card and I can immediately tell you whether I want to be picking it or not when I see it in a draft pack. But sealed is a different format, so you really want to know where are the areas where you should most update your card evaluations to match how those same pieces of cardboard are performing in the different format of sealed. So let's see what's better in sealed. Here's a list of commons that are most improved in sealed compared to draft. Number 1, not surprising based on what we just saw, Chase Inspiration. Number 2 is Stadium Title Mage. I think this makes a lot of sense. As a 4/4 for 2, a blue and a red. When it enters or attacks, draw a card. You may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. Basically, it's too slow for draft and probably too low impact to want to spend 4 mana on. In sealed, hey, it's a body that could kill the opponent. They don't really want to spend their removal on it. But if they don't, it's going to give you card selection until the rest of the game, until the game ends. So I can totally see why it's improved. I will say on this whole list, only Chase Inspiration and Quick Study are actually good. The other 3 are just improved from being unplayable to being playable. So Stadium Title Mage isn't a bomb or anything, but it's a perfectly playable piece in sealed. Okay, the other one makes me so happy to see. Number 3, Page Loose Leaf. If you don't know what this card does, that's very understandable. It's a 0/2 for 2. It taps to add a colorless. Then it has an ability called Grandeur. You can discard another card called Page Loose Leaf. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an instant or sorcery card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So there's something that I've wanted to do with this card for a long time, which is you get one really, really good instant or sorcery in your deck, like Moment of Reckoning, and then you don't play any other instants or sorceries in your deck. So you just play a very, very, very creature heavy deck with one bomb that's an instant or a sorcery. Then you run as many copies of Page Loose Leaf as you can. If I have like 4 copies of Page Loose Leaf and 1 Moment of Reckoning, then every copy of Page Loose Leaf turns into a copy of Moment of Reckoning. Well, specifically, the second copy of Page Loose Leaf does. This has not been played that many times in sealed, but when it's been played, it's got a pretty average win rate. That makes me wonder if some people are trying this, some people are pulling it off, and some people are not pulling it off. So its win rate cancels out to be pretty average. So I wouldn't recommend going for that, but that's my theory. This kind of is the first signal I've ever seen in the data that there's hope to this quirky idea. Having said that, it's also possible that maybe just a 0/2 mana dork is better in sealed. I wouldn't think so. I would think you typically want to have higher impact cards in sealed. So make of this what you will. Again, Page Loose Leaf, not a bomb, but it's a okay card in sealed, whereas in draft, it's unplayable. Number 4 also makes me very happy, Textbook Tabulator. This one was suffering in the seeded pack world. It turns out that in normal sealed, in the actual arenadirect data, it's just fine. So this is a 0/3 Frog Wizard for 3 increment, and when it enters, Surveil 2. It on paper, it's not bad. It's just way too slow for draft. Turns out in sealed, it can hang. Not amazing, but it can hang. And then number 5 most improved in sealed was Quick Study. We just saw Quick Study is kind of a bomb in sealed. You really want to run your quick studies if you can. All of these are 4 percentage points better, roughly, in sealed than they are in draft. Quick Study's about 3 percentage points better. Okay, the most improved uncommons. Number 1 is Spell Pierce. Counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. This actually turns out to be a very strong effect in sealed. In draft, take it or leave it. It's probably not something you want to be main decking in best of 1 draft. In sealed, it's actually a very strong uncommon. Taking this with a little bit of a grain of salt because it has a pretty small number of games played, Spell Pierce's win rate puts it above premium removal like Repel Calamity, Impractical Joke, Foolish Fate, very close to Molten Note, End of the Hunt. I mean, I was actually quite shocked at how well Spell Pierce is performing. That could say something about the types of decks that Spell Pierce is appearing in, but that's actually a general caveat that you should always have in mind when we're interpreting these individual card performances. One conclusion you could take here is if you open Spell Pierce, you really want to run it. Another conclusion you could take here is I want to be playing the type of deck that wants to be playing Spell Pierce. But one way or another, Spell Pierce you should think of as basically on par with a premium removal spell in Sealed, which is not true in Draft. All right, number 2 most improved uncommon in Sealed, Pigment Wrangler, a 4/4 for 5 flying that enters prepared, and the prepared ability is a sorcery that lets you copy an instant or sorcery this turn. This is too slow to be good in Draft, but in Sealed it's playable. Not great, but playable. Number 3, Spectacular Sky Whale, the Is It 1/4 flyer that gets bigger. Also unplayably slow in Draft, perfectly fine in Sealed. Number 4, I hate that this appeared here, but Harsh Annotation, the 1 and a white instant, destroy target creature, but it gives them a 1/1 flyer as a reimbursement. I can understand why this is a lot better in Sealed, because you desperately want some removal to be able to deal with your opponent's threats. Because everyone has like at least one just game-winning card in their pool that if they draw it demands removal. But you really still should not be playing Harsh Annotation. It goes from atrocious in Draft to just very bad in Sealed, and that's a big improvement. I would only consider playing this if you have 0 other options for removal. Okay, and then number 5, most improved, uncommon in Sealed, Stargaze, X and 2 black, look at twice X cards from the top of your library, put X from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, you lose X life. The main knock against this card has always been, it's just too slow, it costs a lot of mana, doesn't affect the board, and makes you lose life, but it is a very powerful card advantage and card selection effect. And it turns out it is not too slow for Sealed. It's actually perfectly good. It's an actively good card in the Sealed environment. So Spell Pierce and Stargaze are actively good. Pigment Wrangler, Spectacular Skywell, and Harsh Annotation are varying degrees of playable. I mean, I still think Harsh Annotation is basically not playable, but it is 3 percentage points better in Sealed than in Draft. The Spell Pierce, Pigment Wrangler, and Skywell are 4 percentage points better. Skywell's Stargaze is also 3 percentage points better. Okay, now let's look at the commons and uncommons that are the most worst, the biggest movers down from Draft to Sealed. Number 1 mover down is Ancestral Anger, a card that rewards you for having as many copies of Ancestral Anger as possible. Yeah, that makes sense. You can set that up in Draft sometimes. You could not set that up in Sealed. Number 2 is Oracle's Restoration, a card I've never really thought about playing in Draft. It's a sorcery that gives a creature you control +1/+1 until end of turn. Why is it a sorcery? You draw a card, okay, and you gain 1 life for 1 green. This is actually the single least winning common with play rate data in the last Arenadirect. If you can pick 1 common not to play, it should be Oracle's Restoration. I think you just spend time kind of doing nothing because you're much less likely to get the synergy benefit out of gaining a life. And it already didn't really work in Draft. Okay, these last 3, I can already see the comments rolling in about how all 3 of these cards are amazing and won you a box last time and everything. Just bear in mind, I'm the messenger just reporting to you what empirically happened when people played these cards 2 weeks ago. So interpret that how you will. But the 3 next biggest movers down from Draft to Sealed were Bogwater Lumerette, the 2/2 Witherbloom card that gains you a life whenever a creature enters, Spirit Mascot, the 2/2 Lorehold card that gets bigger every time something leaves your graveyard, and Pest Mascot, the 2/3 Golgari card, Witherbloom card, that when you gain life it gets bigger. These 3 are all huge movers down from Draft to Sealed. All 3 of them are key synergy pieces for what you want to be doing in one of the colleges in Draft. So those 3 being big movers down in Sealed says to us that you shouldn't just take what the colleges want to be doing at face value. Pursue the Past was the best common in Sealed, and it's a synergistic Lorehold card. But Spirit Mascot being a big mover down tells me Pursue the Past is at the top probably because of its raw power. It's just great card advantage, not because you want to be exiling as many or removing as many cards from your graveyard as possible. So I think Spirit Mascot being at the bottom is very interesting information about what Lorehold wants to be doing. In Lorehold, you probably should just be playing good cards over trying to maximize your synergy, which is good advice for Sealed generally. Pest Mascot, Bogwater Lumerette, and Oracle's Restoration at the bottom is just telling me I think that Witherbloom is really not where it's at in this format. All right, and then the uncommons that are the biggest movers down are more of the same story. So the number one biggest mover down, dual tactics, is like 1 red, deal 1 damage to something and flash it back. This takes a huge hit in sealed. I think it's because in draft, you're at least getting the benefit of whatever Lorehold synergies you have going on by flashing it back. In sealed, you don't really have that going on, and it's not a powerful card on its own. So the synergies are lifting it up in draft, and they're just not there to lift it up in sealed, so it falls off a cliff. Number 2, 3, and 5 are all Witherbloom synergy cards. Old Growth Educator, which gets bigger when it enters if you gain life this turn. Probably most of the time in sealed, this just ends up being a 4/4 for 4 because you can't turn on the synergies. Thornfist Striker, which mini overruns your team when you gain life. It's okay in sealed, but it's really good in draft. And then Essence Knit Scholar, that's another case where this is amazing in draft. It's essentially a 3-for-1 a lot of the time. In sealed, it is actually still pretty good. It just is a lot worse than it is in draft. And another card that's still pretty good in sealed, but a lot worse than it is in draft is Garrison Excavator, the 2/2 factory in Lorehold. I predicted at the beginning of the set that this card wouldn't be very good just based on raw power and how this type of card has worked out in the past. That prediction was wrong. It turns out it is very good in draft because the Lorehold synergies are so powerful and so easy. But in sealed, the Lorehold synergies I think are not as powerful, not as easy to turn on, and so Garrison Excavator approaches its like more close to its raw power rate, which is like kind of medium. Dual Tactics is 6 percentage points worse in sealed than it is in draft, goes from okay to the second worst uncommon in the whole format. The rest of them are around 3 or 4 percentage points worse. All right. So cards that we saw get way better are Awkward Threats, Card Advantage, and also some kind of clunky commons or uncommons that they don't really want to spend their removal on, but can take over the game. So prioritize cards like Stargaze, like Quick Study, like Stadium Title Mage. I think basically every card that got worse is about synergy, to be honest. Even the synergies in the best archetype, Lorehold, being still pretty close to the top, do not seem to be what makes that archetype good. I'm really excited for this next section, which is completely new in these videos. This is a section I'm calling Hidden Gems. For each of the 5 colleges, I pulled out a card that people are playing way less often than they should. On 17 lanes, you can see what percent of the time people put a card in their deck, given that they opened it in their pool. And what I did was I went way down that list to cards that are very often left in the sideboard, and I picked out outliers that are very often left in the sideboard, but have a much higher win rate than other cards that were sitting in the sideboard. So here's your first example in Silverquill. Masterful Flourish is a 1 black for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. This card is fine in draft, but it's not like a pack one, pick one or anything. I think probably because of that, only 62% of arenadirect players who opened this in their pool actually decided to run it in their Silverquill deck. So we're filtering to people who played Silverquill. They could have run this, they can afford black mana, but only 62% of them chose to. In that archetype, however, it was the 3rd best performing common. So that's 38% of people who were leaving win equity on the sideboard by choosing not to run the 3rd best common in their color pair. Now, I do want to give a caveat that this is a bomb protection, just like Chase Inspiration. When you're running a card that gives something indestructible until end of turn, you might be choosing to do that because you have 3 cracked bombs in your deck and you think, hey, I should probably run a Masterful Flourish to protect them. So it probably correlates with card quality in your deck. I don't know that this is a strong individual signal that Masterful Flourish is going to bump your win rate up on its own. So because of that caveat, I included a bonus. If you don't buy that thing about Masterful Flourish and you think it's not inherently a good card, this is just kind of us being tricked by correlations, then how about this one, Interjection? Only 51% of people played Interjection. This is 1 mana for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains first strike. It is the 8th best performing common in Silverquill, but only half of people were playing it. And this has no caveat about bomb protection. This is probably just being lifted by its own raw power. It's just a solid combat trick. It also, I think, strongly suggests that your Silverquill decks want to be proactive. Decks that people were building in a mindset that they want to be attacking, getting into combat, dealing damage. Those types of Silverquill decks were probably the ones that were winning more. All right, next up is Lorehold. Potioner's Trove is a huge outlier here. Okay, this is actually one of my favorite results in the whole slideshow. I think this is so fascinating and so revealing about where the format is at. People who opened Potioner's Trove overall, regardless of what archetype they ended up in, more than 60% of them, more than 60% ended up playing it. So people want to be playing Potioner's Trove overall. But Lorehold players only played it 26% of the time. So the vast majority of people who opened Potioner's Trove and decided to build a Lorehold deck left their Potioner's Trove in the sideboard. And yet, among that 26% who did play the Potioner's Trove, it ended up being the 5th most winning common. Given that you were playing Lorehold, you would rather draw your Potioner's Trove than your Rubble Rouser, according to the win rate data. Isn't that amazing? And yet 74% of people left it on the sideboard after building a Lorehold deck. There's a caveat, but it's also an instructional note, I would say. This, again, is not about Potioner's Trove immediately causing you to win a bunch of the time. This probably is something about the types of decks that these 26% of people who played it decided to build. One thing you could speculate is that maybe they were building a slower, more spells-oriented Lorehold deck, fewer spirit mascots, and more just good removal leading to top-end bombs with a lot of nice card advantage along the way. And Potioner's Trove was a nice support for that. Another thing you could speculate is that they were splashing. I open a bomb. So this is all of these archetypes. I'm including small splashes as part of the archetype. It doesn't have to be exactly Lorehold. It could have a green pip here, a blue pip there, but not like fully 3 colors or anything. And so it's possible that those splashing decks had an amazing card outside of Lorehold colors. They were running Potioner's Trove because they wanted support to play that card, and their deck was better on average because they had that power that they were trying to support. That's possible. But still, this does not point to a format where the type of Lorehold decks that are succeeding are highly aggressive. If you don't buy that and you just want to know, okay, forget, say I don't have something to splash into, and maybe you don't buy that Potioner's Trove is good in just a straight up 2-color Lorehold deck. Here's another card for you to consider. Rapier Wit is right behind Rubble Rouser in the win rate data. It is the 7th best common, 2 behind Potioner's Trove, 1 behind Rubble Rouser in Lorehold. This is 1 and a white for an instant, tap target creature. If it's your turn, put a stun counter on it and draw a card. Fewer than half of people played this card, and I know why. It's because it's just too slow and kind of do nothing in draft. In sealed, hey, maybe it buys you a turn of locking down their best bomb and draws you into your actual removal against that bomb. Or maybe the tempo actually just matters more in sealed. You just have a little bit more time to give your opponent a little stumbling block. But you should not be leaving this card on the sideboard in Lorehold, period. It is as wrong as leaving your Rubble Rouser on the sideboard, which basically nobody did correctly. So play your Rapier Wits and your Potioner's Troves apparently in your Lorehold decks. Okay, in Prismari, the hidden gem, no surprise here, is Chase Inspiration. Only 30% of people played this card. It is about the 8th best performing common in that archetype. It has the same caveat as when we've discussed this before. It might just be they had amazing bombs in their pool, so they decided to play Chase Inspiration, so they won a lot. But still, one takeaway here is don't ignore those Chase Inspirations in your pool. Quandrix Green Blue does not have enough info on its own. Like, very few people play straight Green Blue or Green Blue with a splash. If you're Green Blue, you're going to add in another color pretty much in this format. And by far the most common is Teamer Green Blue Red. This actually has many more games played than just Green Blue. An interesting one is a huge hidden gem was Rubble Rouser. People probably think of this as a Lorehold card, and in their Teamer decks, only 44% of people actually ran their Rubble Rouser. But in Teamer, Rubble Rouser is the 5th best common. So it's not about exiling things from your graveyard in order to activate Lorehold synergies. This is just Rubble Rouser showing us that it's a good card. There is a bit of a caveat that decks that can afford to play a bunch of red commons, maybe they just tend to have better mana on average than your average Teamer deck, which would usually be based in green and blue and splashing the red. So maybe they're winning more because of their good mana, and they're also playing more red commons because of their good mana. But here's another really interesting hidden gem that complicates that narrative. Seize the Spoils, 2 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast it, discard a card, then you draw 2 and make a treasure. Only 41% of people played it, but it's about the 6th best common. You wouldn't really splash into Seize the Spoils. You would need to have good mana to even consider playing this. But it's kind of quick study-ish, you know, 2 and a blue, 2 and a red, and it makes you draw 2 cards. makes you discard a card, but you also get to make a treasure token. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as Quick Study, but you definitely shouldn't be leaving this in the sideboard in your teamer decks if you can afford to play it. It's the 6th highest performing common in that 3-color type. All right, and then finally in Witherbloom, this one is, I just want to tell all of us about this card one more time. Most of us know it's very good, but only 72% of people played it in their Witherbloom deck. And that is Cost of Brilliance, 2 and a black, target player draws 2 and loses 2, and you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Combat tutorial with a drawback, but that can also deal 2 damage to your opponent in a pinch. This is the single #1 best common in Witherbloom. And yet only 72% of people played it in their Witherbloom sealed deck. This should be like 100%. I cannot imagine building a green-black deck and leaving Cost of Brilliance in the sideboard. So to those 28% of people, play your Cost of Brilliance. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole hidden gem run through for every college for uncommons as well. I just want to call out one hidden gem across the board that over and over again in every archetype is played less than its win rate data suggests it should be. And that is Strixhaven Skycoach, 3/2 for 3, flying vehicle that when it enters, you can search for a basic and put it into your hand. The way it played out, it turns out Strixhaven Skycoach is less like a vehicle and more just like a 3/2 flyer that can go in any deck that finds you a land. And that is just a great card. Its win rate data is consistently putting it among the very top uncommons in every single deck. And yet it's consistently being left in the sideboard, 30 to 60% of the time, depending on how splashy people think they are. Even in your aggressive asserted decks, you should almost certainly just be running Strixhaven Skycoach. Not tripping on mana is just good, no matter what your deck is. All right, as the last section before we conclude, I always like to go through trophy decks on Arena, on 17 lands, find a deck that someone actually won a box with, and kind of break down how I think it worked. And for me, I conveniently have an example that I won a box with 2 weeks ago. So I ran this event in a bit of a haze. I was completely exhausted and in a total rush, and the event was just a few hours from ending. I took like 45 minutes to build my deck, and I cut out about half an hour of it of me just sitting there like this, staring at Arena, trying to figure out what I could possibly build with this pool. And I basically ended up building Converge with some awesome payoffs. I had 2 Arcane Omens and an Archaic Agony, and I had the Dawning Archaic. That's kind of and I had a Wild Growth Archaic, the green card that makes things enter with a bunch of counters if you spent different mana for it. And then also Prismatic Ending, the thing that lets you exile if you spend a bunch of different colors. But my fixing was not that great. I had an Environmental Scientist, I had a Shared Roots, I had a Studious First Year, Terramorphic Expanse. Okay, my fixing was pretty good. But then I also had a lot of clunkers. I could not figure out a green-blue base that would work. I wanted to build like Teamer plus to make Converge happen, but my blue cards were really bad, I thought. Green-black didn't seem to be in the cards, so eventually I settled on this really weird green-white build because I had 3 Elite Interceptors, a Hop to It, and a Group Project, and then I really wanted to run my Prismatic Ending, and that just seemed like the best basis that I could have for a kind of a beatdown deck. So I actually ended up basing my deck in an unsupported archetype, green-white, which does not really exist in this format. But my green cards were clearly my best, and I just thought Elite Interceptor is good enough that I can just make that the main core of my deck, but have a lot of splashing going on to get more power. And it actually worked out pretty well. Like 4 of my opponents in a row got mana screwed, so I still don't know how good it is, and I don't want to overlearn the lessons. But I think my main takeaway from this is sometimes, maybe, 10-20% of the time, it's correct to play an unsupported color type, an unsupported color pair. If you have a good reason, don't avoid it like the plague. But I do think it's a step below playing something that's supported. I really felt like I was cobbling together something weird, not like I was cruising to victory on an awesome pool. A few specific card callouts. Having a lot of removal was so important. Prismatic Ending, the double Unsubtle Mockery, even Chelonian Tackle. These did a lot of work for me. I also think like green stats can really get there in sealed a lot of the time. So having the Wild Hypotheses, the X and a green make an XX in Surveil 2, not a great card in a vacuum, but being able to just play an 8/8 at the end of the game and also fix my draws a little bit was really good. I pretty much always wanted to draw Wild Hypothesis in the late game, and in the early game I didn't hate drawing it because like a 2/2 for 3 Surveil 2 on turn 3, that's not bad at all. So you have to pick your moment to play that card, but I would not avoid Wild Hypothesis as much as the data suggests. Same with Hungry Graphlon. Everyone in the comments was joking that this was like the biggest, I think someone said the biggest glow up for the giraffe. The 3/4 reach that increments for 4, again, not a good card, actually an actively bad card, but it can just get there. It stops you from dying to flyers. And honestly, this is like the third or fourth time that I have won boxes by just having a responsible sequence of green mid-range stats. I think that's a good direction to go when your pool does not look good. Just put some cards in green that have 3 or 4 power into your deck, and you're gonna win some number of games by default. No one wants to spend their removal spell on your Hungry Graphlon, but if they don't, it will eventually kill them. Another card that is a massive bomb, Arcane Omens, Mind Twist, just make the opponent discard a bunch of cards. This card is just unfair. If you can play this card, I just think you should make every effort you possibly can to put that card in your deck. All right, and if you want to see that really weird run of everybody getting mana screwed against me, I'm going to link it at the end of this video. All right, now to wrap up and conclude, I always share these pieces of general advice at the end of these videos. I think everyone needs to hear it one more time. Number 1, have a budget. I hear these really sad stories every time of people dropping, $200 to do a bunch of runs and not winning a box. If that's what you want to do, just decide in advance that that's what you want to do. This is my most important advice in this whole video. If you can afford to spend $200 doing arenadirect runs, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. But just make it a deliberate choice ahead of time in your budget that that's what you're going to do. Don't lose, and then drop a bunch of money while you're tilted, buy in again, lose. That is not going to make you feel good. Number 2, 3, and 4, eat, rest, and take breaks. I can't tell you how many times I roll out of bed in the morning, fire up a arenadirect run on an empty stomach, and as soon as one game ends, I just fire into the next one, and then suddenly I'm 4 games deep and I realize I haven't even eaten yet. You're not playing your best if you're doing that. So eat, rest, and take breaks. Number 5, use your timer. I always say your timer is a resource, so use it. Okay, if you're sitting there in standard queues and you don't really want to make everybody wait for a minute for you to make every decision, that makes sense. This is an event, a competitive event with money on the line that you paid either a bunch of money or a bunch of time to enter. Use your resources. You can sit there and think as long as you need to about any decision. You can and you should. If you lose a game where you did not use your timer, you left a resource for winning on the table. That is an easy fix to do better next time. And finally, feel free to ask for help building your sealed queue, your sealed pool. Every time there's an arenadirect, my Discord, which by the way just hit 200 members, hooray, lights up with people sharing their pool and asking for help building a deck. And our community is always happy to jump in and give advice. So join our 200 plus limited improvers in the Discord. There's a link in the description. Share your pool when you open it, and you can get help building your deck. All right, so to wrap up and summarize, Witherbloom is much, much weaker than we thought going into the weekend, and much weaker than in draft. The white-based decks, Silverquill and Lorehold, are still on top. I think their synergies are less important, including Lorehold synergies. These are just white-based, probably pretty assertive, probably pretty creature-based decks. Although Lorehold, there are some signals that maybe you really want to play some more spells and a more controlling game is possible. And then, no surprise to anybody, a card that draws more than one card is great. Quick Study, Stargaze, this type of card, big movers up in this format. All right, everyone, hope this was useful this weekend. Have tons of fun playing Magic, and good luck winning a box.